What is up, everybody? Welcome to Omnic Lab, episode 110. Just like most of these episodes, we're a podcast focusing on the game of Overwatch and specifically the strategies therein. That's right, we're using fancy language this week, and we're going to be doing it just like we always do. Plain and simple, scientific methods. Sometimes things get crazy, but that's why we bring in the big guns. We bring in the experts. This week we're going back to the past. We're going to be revisiting a previous Going Deep, and we're going deep this week with a Mercy hero guide with the one and only Vale. Welcome to the show, Vale. What's up?
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. And Vale is not only a epic guest, but is also a fantastic guest on the show this week for a particular hero that is always requested that we update. Let me tell you, there is so many people out there that not just want updates to past episodes, but want specific ones to be prioritized. So this is a good update this week. So let's introduce yourselves to our other host of the show. Per usual, we have Andres Gomez. I can't even talk this week. What's up, Andres?
Andres Gomez. I'll take it. What's up? What's up? It's good to be
Swedish
here.
flair.
Yeah, like you said, Mercy is probably one of the most requested heroes, mainly probably because she's been one of the most reworked heroes in the entire history of Overwatch. The last time we visited her, she could still resurrect a ton of people and do tons of crazy stuff, but not quite anymore. She's in a very stable spot, and we thought it was a good time to take a good look back at Mercy.
Absolutely. So we brought in the big guns, like we said at the top of the show. Let's get into what we're going to be actually focusing on this week, which is the hero itself, and kind of we're going to break down a little bit more of the synergies they're in for how you work together as a team, how you work together with your other supports, maximizing the kit itself, and then also we're going to kind of break down a lot more of getting value out of your ultimate and building ultimate. So those are kind of the main key points that we're going to be doing. If we have time, we're going to try to address some of the user questions that we had submitted. But basically, to give you a little bit of backdrop, Vale is a top 500 frequenting player, I guess. I mean, we'll probably have you just talk a little bit more about yourself here, because I don't even know how many times you got there.
You know, he knows his way around the top
He dips
500.
his toe in there a little bit. But yeah, Vale, why don't we just start with that?
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Vale. I'm a Mercy main, and I have been quite unusual. I'm one of the people who started off low and actually climbed my way up. So I've experienced Mercy on every tier going up. Season 2, I finished low gold. Season 3, low diamond. Season 4, low top 500, and then Season 5 I actually finished the highest SR Mercy in the world. And since then,
nice.
I've hit top 10 in NA. I've been on overbuff. I've been the best, second best, third best, and fourth best Mercy in the world all at the same time across 4 accounts, all top 100. So I've kind of decent at Mercy.
You know the pain of the grind too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
you've put in your
pretty average Mercy, I'd say.
Yeah,
I think we got somebody here. That kind of
I'm not completely terrible.
Why like Mercy so much? What's kind of like your background with FPSs? How did you get into Overwatch?
I've been gaming since before I could walk, I think. So I've played just about all the popular games throughout the course of history, basically. But all the Counter-Strike games and all the Blizzard games and so on and so on. But when I came to Overwatch, I actually tried all the heroes. I tried to give them at least a few hours each. And really, I just went with the hero that I found most fun to play. And that was Mercy. And I think that it's because of her mobility. I think she is insanely fun to fly around the map. You can really have a very high amount of skill in her positioning, which I think a lot of people don't think about that much. And I've always just found that mobility really, really fun.
Absolutely. Wait, you can really see the difference between somebody who's just picking Mercy up and they seem very static, very defenseless,
Yeah.
like you can totally take advantage of them. And then you see a top Mercy and you're like, what? They're flying all over the place.
Yeah.
You can't keep track of them. They're 1 second they're healing somebody, the second they're like shooting at you from the sky, and you're like, "Oh my god, they're actually going to kill me! I gotta get out of here."
With Valkyrie now, they could be anywhere.
I definitely really kind of relate. I think that was the one thing that I identified with when I first started playing, and kind of like what I attached myself to was definitely the movement. And then like as I kind of grew into the movement and kind of made it more of, I guess, my comfort zone, then I really started realizing that Mercy was teaching me a lot of other things about the game and really improved my macro understanding of the game quite a bit. Started tracking ults, shot calling a little bit better. I was able to maintain learning better about the game because I wasn't focused on a bazillion aspects at once. And then when I started playing other heroes, it kind of exponentially got better because the macro understanding went up. So that was a huge help for me when I started transitioning to mastering other heroes. But I think we got to know you a little bit, and we're going to get to know you a whole lot more with how you play the game in just a few minutes. But we have a few announcements first and some sponsors to thank. The game night is this week. Actually, it is later today if you're in the United States. It is tonight, June 29th. Be there or be square, whether you're a PS4, an Xbox, or a PC player. We will have players all the way up to Grandmaster, all the way down to Bronze. We will be instituting a new rule this year, or this week, for this particular game night, where if people really want to get super inebriated, we're going to start putting them in their own rooms. So people that want to play and compete sober can. Is something that I was trying to talk about with a few members, not just in our game night, just in others. And I think that's, if you want to compete and you want to not screw around, then that's fine. You want to be in there more of the quote unquote learning groups, that's fine. We'll figure out how to set it up. I'll be running a lobby. I know Andres will be there. We'll probably see some other podcasters and personalities pop in. I even extended the invitation to some of my players on our Plat Pilgrims team that's still applying to trying to get through
Plat
open. They might show up.
I love that name.
It's the best name, Plat Pilg. We call it the Plat Pilgies sometimes. It's pretty good. But we got to thank a couple sponsors. We got Ben, aka I Need Peeling, with Top Score Solutions. He's offering free business consultations in esports. If you're looking to aspire as a coach, you want to start a team, you want to develop an app or service, you want to boost your subscriber base, or you just want to work in esports, you can visit the website topscoresolutions.com, or you can find him on Topscore Esports Tag on Twitter. He has a Discord that is popping off with all kinds of different categories. You can get advice, you can talk with other pros, you can get connected with business professionals and investors and start talking more. Ben has a master's in sports management, finances, data analysis as well, data analytics, as well as experience in sales, marketing, and company development. Services are free as long as the demand allows and the supplies last in relationship to the time and the service. We also have a brand new sponsor this week coming in from one of our top diamond sponsors. We have Jan Jinkel starting his own podcast that is actually a variety gaming thing, and I'll just read what he sent us in. Red Steak Sauce Podcast, which I actually had the fun pleasure of helping them name, which is hilarious.
For a second, I was excited it's going to be like a podcast all about grilling meat or something, like awesome barbecue.
It is definitely about grilling, but probably more about grilling each other than meat. Very similar to the other podcasts I'm sure that a lot of you guys are familiar with in the variety gaming categories. Basically, he says, Red Steak Sauce is the only podcast that was conceived as a comedy variety show and turned into an entertainment news show the moment Matt pressed record button on Audacity. So you can join Matt and Ryan as they navigate through briny, oversaturated depths on gaming, movies, and other miscellaneous entertainment news, while occasionally messing around with Lego stuff Matt leaves lying around. And this has got the not safe for work tag, so you will be frequently entitled to enjoying the amount of F-bombs you're going to be listening to on this show. You can find them on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, and SoundCloud, or at the website redsteaksauce.net. I've been listening to a couple of their episodes. The production quality is something that they're working on. Been working with them on the back end. They did a lot of pre-recording stuff, so you have to be on the lookout for that. That's going to do it for our sponsors. Andres, do you want to talk once more about our partner, Omnic Meta, and then we'll get into the Going Deep guide.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure to check out omnicmeta.com. You can find all the latest trends on the meta over there. Switch does a great job of aggregating all of the data, so you can see what heroes are taking the top trends. You can see what heroes are overperforming, underperforming. He does a couple of articles here and there explaining different stuff. He actually has focused quite a little bit on Mercy and throughout all the changes. So it's a really interesting website. He keeps it very updated. So if you guys haven't had a chance to check that out, make sure you do. And also check out Owl Recap, or sister show focusing all about Overwatch League. Right now we're heading into the playoffs and soon into the finals. It's getting super interesting, and it's going to be a big climax over in New York. So if you want to keep up with what's going on over there and you haven't had time to catch up all the games, that's a great spot to do it. See you guys over there.
All right, let's start talking about Mercy before Vale subs start coming after us. Let's get into the guide, all right? So Vale, take us away. Talk to us about Mercy. Talk to us about support in general. What is it that you're looking to do on the hero? Kind of just big, broad brush strokes. Think about this as if I was brand new to Overwatch, or I was in the lowest tier of play, and I'm looking to get to know my quick and dirty heads-up guide for Mercy.
All right, basically, Mercy is a main healer. She gives a ton of healing, and that is first and foremost her main job. That's what you need to be focusing on. I see a lot of people who ask, when do I pull out the Battle Mercy? And I'm sure we'll cover that quite a lot here. But
we'll get to
the short answer is heal first, everything else later for new players. And then also you want to make sure that because you're just trying to heal your teammates and not die, a big part of that is stay behind your teammates, try to stay relatively safe. And I think that's the core to the Mercy kit is stay alive, heal your team, everything else comes second.
You said that Mercy is a main healer. So what would you differentiate Mercy, let's say, for example, to a Zenyatta or some of the other healers that you wouldn't categorize as main healer? What makes it a main healer compared to those?
A main healer is someone whose core purpose is to have that healing, and that's the bulk of their benefit to the team. So if you say, for example, you have a Lucio or a Brig or one of those other heroes like that, those heroes can do a lot of damage. They can do a lot of different things. Brig can be stunning people, she can be damaging people, Zen can be discording and damaging a lot of people, Lucio can be flying around the map, booping people off. Current meta, Lucio actually isn't supposed to heal very much at all even. So they have a lot of kind of different objectives, whereas a healer like Mercy or Ana, they're like the number one thing you need to be doing is healing your team and just giving a huge healing number.
Absolutely. Usually Mercy, too, out of all of the healers, I would put her at one of the most consistent healing outputs throughout the entire game. Just because of the way that she has to heal compared to some of the other healers, right? Some of the other heals tend to be a little bit more gimmicky in a sense like that. Mercy's heal is very straightforward, to the point. Like, let me just click the person I want to heal, and I'm just going to pump a ton of healing into them, which makes it one of the most consistent healers in all of Overwatch. And I think that's one of the main reasons why you see her in so many games, and even throughout so many changes that Mercy has had, that healing has stayed constant, right? That is the one thing that has never changed from her. And I think that's what makes it so strong. Do you want to speak a little bit about that heal compared to some of the other ones?
Yeah, I mean, I think the great thing about Mercy is it's very, very consistent and it's very, very reliable. A lot of players, get jittery, especially the lower ranks. If someone's attacking them and they're trying to heal their team, it's Ana's missing every shot, or Lucio forgot to switch off speed boost or something, right. And there's a lot of different things like that where you're depending. Brig has to hit people to heal everyone around
Right,
her for the
right.
most part. So there's a lot of factors with the healers, whereas Mercy is you click that person, you know they're getting that 60 health per second or
Right.
so forth. So I think a lot of people really enjoy that.
So besides a few factors that we hit on, I just want to kind of recap them and maybe transition you into a little bit more of the intermediate stuff. So we mentioned that staying alive and prioritizing healing on your team, as well as things that you can heal nearby, right? Like the things
Yes.
that are by you,
Mhm.
as being your main first points of contact with the hero. The next thing I would say as you transition into the intermediate and yet still remain in the basics, this would be, I guess, your kind of your transition from bronze to gold aspect would
Okay.
be movement and awareness. I feel like these two things are like the next step for kind of just continuing moving. And this is what people like to categorize as what they call quote unquote positioning. Positioning is
Mhm.
kind of a good descriptor word, but I feel like just good positioning in Overwatch is everything is kind of like the overused tagline that even we use quite a bit because it's such an it's not an arbitrary, it's such a vague thing to say, well, you just work on your positioning. It's like, well, what does that mean? So let's break that down into, I would say, like safety, movement, awareness, and then even a little bit of macro. Probably when we get into kind of gold and beyond, I would say that would be the next step. So why don't you speak to those things?
Yeah, I would say that one the best things I've because I've coached some people in Mercy before, and I think one that sticks
Sure.
with the kind of gold level players a lot in terms of positioning with Mercy is you want to pretend like there's an enemy soldier 76 always using his attack visor, and you kind of want to play with that in mind. Um, and so what that usually means is you want to keep far away from your teammates. You want to stay in the back line, like as max as that beam distance will let you, and then you want to constantly be breaking line of sight because with Mercy, you don't have to see the person that you're healing to be healing them. Yeah, as long as you see them once every 2 seconds or so, you can actually keep that healing beam attached, and you're much safer. So you can stay at the edge of the
Right.
corner and just peek out every so often. And so playing in that way where you're not letting the enemy see you and you're just staying as far back as possible, it's very useful. Um, and then in terms of just safety in general, I think something a lot of people struggle with is they don't know when to res. And I would say don't go for the risky reses. I would say even until probably high masters, you almost just shouldn't res while there's fighting going on around you as a rule of thumb. Now, I mean, if it's like, I know 100% sure I can get this off safely, I'm behind a corner, then sure, go for it. But until that very high level, I think most people aren't very good at judging if they can get
Right.
that res off safely.
Absolutely. And I love that thing, the way that you say that, like, pretend like there's a soldier 76 shooting at you with attack visor all of the time, because that happens all the time, especially at the lower ranks. And you see it with these mercies that they're relying on the opponent, one, not prioritizing them, and two, missing their shots. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
very risky line of thinking, because sure, maybe at that elo, people will not shoot at you first, or if they are shooting at you, the
Mm.
Widowmaker might be shooting her
Mm-hmm.
shots all of the time. But if you're trying to climb, it's a very bad attitude to have,
Yep.
because you will find that person that does know how to prioritize and does know how to shoot at you. And the
Yeah.
second, like, at least for me, the second I see a Mercy, all my attention just turns to
Yep.
her.
I
Like,
mean, when
that's
you see
it.
a Resing Mercy, she's standing
Everybody,
still. It's the freest
exactly.
kill. You're getting 2 kills with one shot, basically.
It's almost
So
like the enemy team disappears when there's a Mercy out in the open, right? Like, nothing else matters. Like, that's who
yeah,
you're shooting at. And it becomes very risky for Mercy to just be out in the open. And it's a good habit to have and a good habit to form, to always be very elusive, very hard to find. Not Widows won't be able to have good shots on you. Soldier
hmm
76 won't be able to throw, his
Mm-hmm.
burst at you, etc. Winston's have to look at you really hard to
Yeah.
find you, etc. You don't want to be easy to find. In.
I think that that piece of advice, Vale, is honestly something that you can't just even pin on Mercy. I feel like this is great piece of advice just for climbing in general on any hero. And traditionally that would be more to the squishy DPS and the other supports.
Yeah,
You're just
supports
treated
a
as
lot.
if Genji's always on you. If you
Mhm.
treat it as if, you know, something's always going on, you're playing extra safe, then you're not going to die as often. Granted, you may not be able to heal certain people or make a little bit more of the risky plays, but that's something, like you said, you're going to have to start transitioning into later on. And that's going to be more of an advanced thing. If you're not getting into the realm of what you listed as masters, or what we like to say is kind of the break-even point kind of tends to be around diamond.
Mhm.
When you start playing with masters, I'd say is probably those are the times when you can start making those risky decisions. Then it's time to start kicking up the dust and saying, okay, how do we want to get a little creative here, right? You don't have to be cute to get the diamond.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people have been saying. It's just consistent play, and playing well is what's going to get you there. Albeit, I'm more of a parrot for this because I still haven't got there yet. But I know that Andres has reinforced some of the opinions that I've had on the show, so I just go with what he tells me.
What about let's
That
talk?
being said, Andres, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you about Guardian Angel in general, because that is a big part of the movement kit of Mercy, and mastering that ability and the nuances about it can really give you an edge on the positioning with the hero. So, can you tell us a little bit of your tricks and how to
Yeah,
use Guardian
definitely.
Angel?
So first off, I see this come up often as people are, questioning what settings do they use. And I'd say almost all of them are just personal preference. I myself use the opposite of default for all of them. But the one thing that is not personal preference that is strictly better is you have to turn toggle Guardian Angel to off. And the reason why you want to do that is because when you have toggle Guardian Angel off, you can actually hold down the key. So on the PC, it's a left shift. And if you hold it down, you'll actually jump to a friendly character the exact frame that you see them. And what that means is if you're falling off a cliff, if you're trying to catch up to someone behind, who's constantly rounding corners, or you're just trying to run away from someone while constantly rounding corners, you need to go you need to catch that as soon as possible. If you're falling off a cliff and someone peeks you for one frame, you don't always hit the button in time, and so you fall to your
Right.
death or something. So
Right.
if you
Yeah.
can hold it down and always get the peak reaction time, it's a huge help.
It's
So
like
Yeah.
it's like the same principle with like tracer backtrack, for example. Like when
Mhm.
you get stunned or something, you don't wait for the second that you leave the stun and then you press it. You just press it and leave it pressed. So the
And
second
hold
the
it.
stun wears
Right.
off, you
Yeah,
immediately do it. It's kind of like that same thing. You just hold down your shift, you aim in the general direction. The second somebody peeks, boom, you're off to races.
exactly.
Mhm.
But
And it's easier to cancel, right?
yeah, absolutely. Because you just hold it down for how long you want to be using it for.
It takes a
Um,
minute to get used to, though. I'll admit I'm not a Mercy player, so I don't play her too much. And I was playing with my friend, and he told me, "Hey, change these settings over here." I tried it, and man, my movement with Mercy was horrible for a
yeah,
minute.
Took a while.
Yeah.
yeah. Changing any setting can definitely throw you off for quite a while, especially that one. But I'd say it's definitely worth it. But as for Guardian Angel in general, I would say it's one of Mercy's most powerful things in her kit, and you should definitely be using it very, very, very often. In fact, I almost use it every time it's off cooldown, which is only about a second.
Yeah,
So
like two
that should
seconds,
tell
right?
you how much. Yeah,
Second
it's
and a half.
yeah, very, very short cooldown, and I use it almost nonstop. It can really make you hard to keep up with. In general, I would say the only time I'm really holding on to it is if I'm consciously holding it for some reason. I see a lot of people struggle with Winston's, for example, because or Winston, Genji, Tracer, they jump on you and you're like, I'm dead. But if you know that they're going to be after you, what you can do is you hold on to your Guardian Angel, you wait for them to jump. The second the Winston jumps, you Guardian Angel, and then every time he tries to jump, you've already left it, and you're always trying to catch up, and you're usually okay. So stuff like that helps a lot, but in general, just Guardian Angel all the time. And to go a little lengthy, one last tip for Guardian Angel, I
Oh,
would say
please,
is
no, go as
No,
lengthy
please,
as you want.
please.
The more the
yeah,
better.
yeah, I would say one more really important thing with Guardian Angel that I see not a lot of people utilize, especially at the lower ranks, is that there's the jump mechanic that's been added to it, and well, there's a lot of depth that you can do with that. There's a lot of tricks and encourage people to look into it
So
more. But
this mechanic used to exist before, right? But it was not an intended mechanic, if I'm
yes,
correct.
it was originally was a bug, and then they removed the bug, and they just gave the mechanic because people loved it so much.
Right. But
Um,
can you
So how would
explain?
you
Can you explain
describe
what I
it?
mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
the trick I'm getting to,
Yeah.
essentially the jump mechanic, how you want to use it most times is near the end of your guardian angel when you're nearing the target that you're getting to. Press the space button, the jump button, and then you want to hold that down. And what that will do is it'll boost you up into the air a little bit, and it'll give you a bit of a movement increase, acceleration as well. So what happens is instead of landing at your target, you can actually go, an initial half of the guardian angel's distance. And that much is absolutely huge, especially if you have a Genji or a Tracer chasing you. That's an extra blink that you're farther away. And so say
Right.
one less blink, then that could be the difference between living or not.
It
And
gives you
it's
like this
very, very good.
extra momentum, so you don't, yeah, like you say, you don't land at your target, but you go past them
Mm-hmm.
a little
This
distance.
is this is something that's referred to as mercy skipping or slingshotting. This is kind of the thing that
Exactly.
you'll hear quite a bit with other players out there.
And
Mm-hmm.
the way I think about it is kind of like the Widowmaker grapple hook, but instead of you grappling to walls, you're grappling to people, and mid
Exactly.
jump, you press spacebar, and you know how Widow can kind of launch herself off of walls using this technique. It's exactly the same principle.
Yes.
So,
Um,
Vale, I wanted to ask you again about this because of the timing is something that takes quite a bit to master and is definitely worth people's time practicing, whether it be
mhm.
in quick play or against bots or whatever. But the mechanic has two things I wanted you to touch. I would like to maybe just open for discussion, and one of them is like the timing of when to hit the space bar, and the other would be how this works with verticality. And when you're running like one or two of your heroes is on high ground, a couple are on low ground. Maybe you're triangulating your team for a split push.
Mhm.
There's any, and then the other side of this is just when you insert a Pharah into the mix, right?
Yeah.
So you want to talk about this?
Yeah. So I would say when it comes to verticality, the jump mechanic is actually extremely powerful because let's say someone's standing on top of a payload or something, and they
Sure.
have just a little bit of distance above you. If you're standing on ground level, you can actually fly to them, and then if you use that jump mechanic, you actually get so much extra height that you can make it onto the second story of an object. And now you have the high ground, no one's around you, and you're a lot safer. Using those kinds of tricks is very, very useful. Technically you can actually do that with people on the ground level as you, but it's very, very tricky, and even grandmaster and top 500 players don't often do it
Mm,
because it's hard to master.
right.
But to do that, you would jump in place, and then right before you hit the ground, you're guardian angeling, and then kind of jumping again. It's hard to describe, but you can kind of bug it in a way that you
No,
can
but
do the jump mechanic
That
straight
makes
vertical.
sense.
yeah, I
Um,
think people get the idea because that is kind of like the essence of that flying in mercy, and you can see it. You can see
mhm.
when a person has good mercy movement and when they don't, because when they're not doing exactly what you're saying, the jump through guardian angels and stuff, they just seem very static, very slow.
Yeah.
They're very easy to track. But once you see
Mhm.
a Mercy that has mastered that jump guardian angel, they're flying all over the place, even when they don't have their ultimate. Like, right,
Mhm.
they're just like up in
Absolutely.
the air all over. There's not even a Pharah around, and this
Yeah.
Mercy is still like flying all over the place. And you're like, what? How? And that is
Yeah.
exactly how.
And especially if you have just one teammate on high ground, getting that boost into that like the verticality as well is very, very big. It makes you much harder to hit for most people. Um, but again, as for the jump mechanic, I would just say as for when to do it, anywhere from halfway through onwards is usually pretty good. I think
And the,
most people try to get it at the end of the Guardian Angel, but at least
and
half is fine.
and the
Before you
timing
slow
is
down.
something that you just have to get used to depending on the situation, right? And it's
Hmm.
something you'll just have to practice, and it's probably just muscle memory, timing, because depending on when you press spacebar, the jump will be slightly different, right? And
Yeah.
depending on what distance you want to cover, how far you want to go, and that
That's
will
what makes it
come.
tricky. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that will come from your own expertise and decision making as a player.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, if you have the toggle guardian angel off, it makes it a little easier. You let go, you hold
For
down
sure.
S, and you can slow it down pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's definitely a little bit of a learning curve, a lot of practice that goes into it, but it's definitely
So,
something that you should focus on.
Vale, have you ever juked a Genji by canceling GA midway?
I've juked a Genji in every way possible. Yeah, it's
That's what I like to hear.
Once you played this much
yeah.
Mercy.
There's some fun stuff you can do. Like if you have teammates near the ledge or something, you can actually just jump off the ledge and then wait a couple seconds and slingshot high into the air above everyone. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you're up way high in the air, you can actually then Guardian Angel cross the map to someone that you wouldn't be able to see because they're behind a wall or something. So there's a lot of cool little
Yeah.
tricks you can do.
Yeah, once you get
Sweet.
comfortable with it, precipices don't feel that scary anymore.
Hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
Lucio when they go inside like the holes and just ride
Hmm.
around, no problem. Yeah, once
Yep.
you get the hang of it, you'll feel like a Farah.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
Okay. Let's keep this bus moving. The next thing here on our list of questions is the one that is really, really interesting because I found that people sway one side or the other on which beam they use too much of up until they hit masters.
mhm,
And then they kind of figure it out. So talk to us about the beams, weaving the beams.
mhm.
And in our previous guide with Little Menace, we talked a lot about timing the beam where you can swap. So
Yes.
you with projectile heroes or with
Hmm.
cadence of learning your DPS heroes that you
Hmm.
play with. So we want to talk about that.
Yeah, I would say as a rule of thumb, and honestly, this can be applied all the way to top 500. Is you want to heal someone if they need healing. First and foremost, again, that's your job as the healer is keep people alive. So I would say always, or next to always, heal someone if they need healing, and then any split second that they are not or any split second that they are at 100% health, you always want to be damage boosting. So I'll right click people or damage boost people by default. And I see a lot of people do that as healing instead. It's like that person can't be healed. So always damage boost by default if they don't need healing. You switch to healing if they need it, but any fraction of a second you can be damage boosting, you should. There are situations where you want to be damage boosting over healing. If you know that your person's pretty safe, like if Soldier 76 is using his attack visor and he's just chasing them down, they're all running away. It's like Soldier doesn't need healing right now, even if he has 85% health. It's like he doesn't need that extra 15. He needs more damage, so damage boost him. Alts in general, you usually want to try a damage boost if you can get away with it. So that's really really big. And as you were saying with Little Menace, yes, because the way damage boost works is you actually apply the additional damage with the boost when the projectile hits the target rather than when it is fired. And so what that means is you can actually be essentially damage boosting multiple people at the exact same time. A popular example is with Farah rockets. You can be, for example, healing the Farah while the rocket is going through the air, and then you switch to damage boost right before it hits the target. And so you can essentially be healing and damage boosting the Farah at the exact same time, or damage boosting two different people, so forth and so forth. I think one of the best heroes to do this with is actually Zenyatta. I don't see a lot of people mention it, but a lot of times he's holding his right click and he's getting ready just to charge up a bunch of orbs. That's a lot of damage he's going to be doing, and you know how long it's going to take, and you can be healing or damage boosting someone else, and you go, oh, Sin's about to throw his 5 orbs, switch it over to him for half a second, and now you've damage boosted him, which would have otherwise been a whole 3 or 4 seconds. So stuff like that's very, very useful.
I'm
Um,
sure Jonak will tell you that is very useful.
yeah, definitely. And then it's also good for several heroes like Diva Spam. You can actually damage boost that when it blows up. Not a lot of people seem to know
I'm
that.
glad you mentioned that because I remember watching, it was like maybe preseason or like the very first season of the games in Overwatch League. and I was just scrolling Twitter, and man, it was just the funniest thing. I saw EVA post something. He's like, "For God's sake, someone tell these owl players to damage boost the diva bombs." And it was just like, I was like, it's like these hero masters that are playing like so much of one particular hero. They know these nuances in and out,
Mhm.
and to the point that it's like those little tiny frames are just little inches that they can get as far
Yeah.
as man, where am I going with this? Inches as far as like how much further they can push these team fights. And
Yeah.
this is the
Exactly.
difference. There's reasons that you want to do the damage boost, right? Because like Reinhardt has a 2000 barrier
Hmm.
that you can easily destroy in one diva bomb because diva does 1000 damage. If you've even softened that up a little bit and then you give it another 30%, 30% on 1000 damage is
Yeah,
like
that's huge.
a lot of damage. It's 300 more damage on
Hmm.
diva bomb. And when a bomb has what's called the fall off damage, for those of you that are not like understanding about how this works, the radius is like insta kill within a certain range, and then after that it kind of harshly falls off. But when you're adding more damage to it, that means it increases the insta kill range,
Yeah, it's
and that's why
basically
it's so
like giving
important.
extra range.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's other things like this. And Vale, do you have anything like this? Not just necessarily ultimates, but maybe like some lesser known things that people may not be
Yeah.
aware of?
Yeah, I would say a big thing to consider when who to damage boost. I mean, by default, you're damage boosting your consistent DPS like McCree and Soldier and such, but a thing to consider is what are your team's ultimates at? And if, for example, you say, oh, well, my my diva is at 85% alt right now. It's like, well, you can
Hmm.
damage boost your diva, and you can actually, because the damage boost is getting her more damage quickly, you can get her ultimate more quickly. And so if you're using your damage boost on your Zen, for example, it's like now you have Transcendence for that next fight, and
Right.
now you're going to win that next fight because you have Transcendence in time where otherwise you might not have. So I would
Hmm.
say definitely look at what your teammates' alts are at, and that is a huge factor for who to damage boost. Um, and I also like again to try to damage boost people for that half of a second. Sometimes, like for example, there's Reinhardt does his fire strike, does a lot of damage, gives him a lot of alt charge. If you can just damage boost that for the half a second before it hits an enemy, that's very useful, and it's only requires half a second of you damage boosting them. So little things like
Right.
that really add up.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to do for the Mercy player. Like once you get the hang of it, it doesn't take
Hmm.
much just, changing one click to the other click, but it can give
Yeah.
you quite an advantage if you do it at the right times over the consistency of the match. And you can make the job a lot easier for a lot of people. I'm a DPS hitscan mostly player, so I love playing Widowmaker. I love playing McCree, and sometimes just having your Mercy come up to you and give you like that little damage
Hmm.
boost to fight that Pharah or to
Absolutely.
win that soldier battle. It can be huge. Just for like a few seconds, it can make you win that battle and make it so much easier for you.
Yeah.
Vale,
I
have you found
definitely.
this to be much easier since they changed the percentages to be viewed by all players on the tab screen?
Yes, absolutely. That was huge. I mean, as like once you reach Grandmaster level or so, you really start to alt track a lot, and you do that for both teams. But now you don't have to for your own team. So having that is very useful. And then um, just for every level, especially, you can now tell when your teammates are getting close, and you can make those decisions a lot easier than before, where you have to kind of do some mental gymnastics and be like, well, he
Right.
shattered like 60 seconds ago. He got like how many swings? Trying to do
You
geography
can
or
get a lot of
geometry.
shatters by like damage boosting them when you're in the middle of
Yeah.
crazy fights like that, yeah. There's something that I think goes without saying for a lot of players, but just because I get to see a lot more of the lower tier play, and due to our game nights, I'm able to see some mistakes that people are playing on support because I'm not always playing it. So I'm actually able to watch people, which is nice. When somebody is using a support ultimate, and you're playing Mercy, you need to be aware that that's not the time for you to be healing anymore. Like for example, Zenyatta's and for a Lucio ult. Like if they're gonna do something like that, you're needing to use that moment to boost the damage, right? And go ahead.
For the most part,
Yeah.
you are correct, but and it's kind of a very, very common misconception, even at the highest levels, is that doesn't mean all the time. That isn't
Yeah,
always
exactly.
the case.
Exactly.
I've seen a lot of people be like, oh, I'll pop Valkyrie after Zenyatta uses his Transcendence often. And a lot of people are like, why are you doing that? Don't use 2 support ultimates at the same time you're throwing. But actually, it's very, very, very useful and very, very good in the right situation. So say, for example, if in the current meta right now, we see a lot of Zarya and Hanzo doing their combo.
The infamous combo.
Yeah, if your Zenyatta uses Transcendence, then it often isn't enough to keep everyone alive if they're damage boosting the Hanzo. But if he's using Transcendence and you're healing everyone with Valkyrie, you actually can then take that damage most of the time and keep everyone alive.
Yeah.
So situations like that, it can actually be very, very good. So I wouldn't be afraid to do it, sometimes. But in general, yes, if your team is in Transcendence and there's, not a special situation like they're all just earth shattered and grabbed and dragoned or whatever, then it's like, yeah, you should absolutely be damage boosting them because, they don't need the healing at that time. They have good healing or they have shields. They're otherwise safe. And I would say a good tip for people if they are in Valkyrie and damage boosting, which again, Valkyrie during Transcendence is pretty good a lot of the time, because you get her ult so fast. It's not a big deal to kind of waste it. I would always say use your ult more often than less. It's better to have wasted it than to have just saved it too long.
And a lot of the time, her ultimate has become very offensive, right? Rather than what it used to
be. Absolutely. So I'd say a lot of the time when I'll use it is I'll Valk when Transcendence is going off, and I'll damage boost the Zenyatta. And the reason why I do that is because everyone's staying within Zenyatta's circle range to get the healings, or Zen's trying to stay close to all of his teammates. So you get the most amount of people healed next to him, or damage boost. Yeah,
that makes sense. He'll be the most central most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's usually a nice little
Since
tip.
we're talking about Valkyrie, let's just keep it going. If you guys are unaware, Valkyrie is a multi-tiered enhancement drug that Mercy takes. No, I'm just kidding. Valkyrie is the ultimate for Mercy's kit, where Mercy is able to do a bazillion things all at once and have to make a decision with a couple others. Okay, so the duration of the ability is 15 seconds. Her blaster gun actually has a faster rate of fire and doesn't need to reload and can fire infinitely. And if you are unaware, in general, the Caduceus blaster has no damage fall off, but that's because of the projectile is slow and low damage, but now it's just faster in Valkyrie. The Caduceus staff's range to heal and to damage boost is increased, and it now chains to allies within a certain range. Vale was talking to me in the pre-show that it's generally a good rule of thumb to understand how far it is basically from your initial target is about the radius of Lucio's new circle. GA also has a faster speed and extended range, and GA is Guardian Angel, your dash ability. You can move a little bit faster with it. And then you're also getting your little passive regen, which we actually didn't talk about at all. And Vale, you can feel free to talk about Valkyrie and then go kind of backtrack onto how to abuse the regeneration in her passive kit. But I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, I would say just one small tip with Valkyrie's damage boost is in Overwatch, not a lot of people know this at lower ranks, but damage boost actually stacks with basically all the other damage boosts in the game. If someone's nanoed, if there's the Orisa's bongo going off, if there's all these other things, you actually do additional damage with that additional damage, which means that you can really melt targets. And I've had some
way originally.
Yeah, exactly.
Widowmaker's dream.
So I've seen a lot of people who like only heal during an Orisa's ult, even though their teammates are at full health, because they're like, well, they already have damage boost. It's like, no, you should damage boost and really get that extra. Aside from that, when it comes to Valkyrie timing, I get asked that a lot. When do I use Valkyrie? And I would say the best time to use it is whenever you think that it can sway the team fight in your favor. Like whenever things are about even, especially if your team's grouped together, it's very big if your team's grouped together. Go ahead and use it. Again, use it more than less. It's okay if you waste it. You'll learn how to not waste it over time. But absolutely, just try to tilt the fight in your favor. If everyone's alive on both sides and like you're about to push in, go ahead and use it. If they're about to push in, go ahead and use it. I like to try to use it at the start of fights when we're just engaging. That way, everyone's getting the chain heals and damage boost rather than, well, 2 people have died and now I use it. It kind of keeps everyone to have that edge at the beginning.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's really important to make that distinction because compared to how her ultimate used to work, which was at the end of the battle a very reactive ultimate. Once things had panned out, you went in there and you kind of like recover it for your team. Now this ultimate works over time. And the longer that you can have this ultimate activated and the more people that can benefit from this ultimate, the more value you'll generate from it. So it makes sense that you want to activate it sooner rather than later, usually at the beginning of the battle, so you can get the whole duration of it and hopefully boost or heal as many people as you can, swinging the title battle into your favor. Now it's no longer like using it reactively can be very tricky because if you wait to the last second when everybody's either really low or you yourself are really low, you run the risk of once you pop it, your team is dead, you have nobody to boost, nobody to do anything with, or you yourself can still die while you're still using your ultimate, gaining no value from it.
I would say a way that you can use it as well is don't be afraid to use Valkyrie a little selfishly. I know, for example, sometimes if I hear a Genji blade, I'm like, that Genji's probably gonna go for me in a few seconds.
I'm out.
It's like it's if that Valkyrie all it does is keep you alive for the team fight that comes, it's worth it. Use the Valkyrie, go hug the skybox, be really far away, and then it's like now you're going to be there for your team. Whereas otherwise, Genji kills your main healer, and now you have no one to heal with your Valkyrie because you're dead.
Gotta force the anime fights when you can take them.
Yeah.
Okay, go to the skies, boys.
One of the best things about her ultimate too is that fortunately they've separated like everything that makes Mercy really useful from her ultimate, basically. Like you still have your incredibly consistent heals, you still have your resurrection, which we haven't talked about, but I'm sure we'll touch on later. So the kid that has always made Mercy is still there for forever, right? You always have it.
Yeah.
And now you only just have this tool that just makes you incredibly good at being in the team fight. It makes your team incredibly stronger, and it allows you to move basically anywhere, which makes you a threat in itself, right? Like battle mercies become a real thing when Valkyrie gets popped.
Yeah, the most common things I'll do in Valkyrie that I think a lot of people can actually use at a lot of different skill levels is you can actually kill Widowmakers very often in Valkyrie.
Oh, I know. Trust me.
You switch to your pistol and you just
crazy.
You AD strafe while charging after them. And Widowmakers are usually scoped in. That's how they do all their damage, and they can't handle it. They're being rushed. They're panicking, and you can usually get off because you don't have to reload. You can just spam. You can focus a lot on just having erratic movement and getting into distance.
Man.
And you
I
have
remember
constant, you have constant regeneration.
Yeah,
which
and
makes
with
you like
passive
a
health
great
regeneration,
solo
it
player.
makes it really, really hard for the Widow to kill you, even at the highest level. So,
one of my favorite things was when I was watching Fitzy play a game when his is either the enemy Mercy was attacking his Widowmaker, or Fitzy was playing Widow and getting attacked by a Mercy, and he's like, "Oh no, the moth cometh! Run!" It was like this.
And the
great
thing is, like, you're not prepared, right? Because usually Mercy's trying to avoid you the entire battle, and then all of a sudden, just Mercy turns to you, and she's like, "Okay, I mean, I get rid of this problem myself." You just don't expect it, and all of a sudden, you're like, "Oh crap, I'm actually half health. This Mercy actually has the advantage. I gotta get out of here."
And the nice thing too is that Widowmakers are often off by themselves alone at some perch,
right?
So it's very easy to fight them safely because no one else is around them. So I definitely encourage people to give it a try. I think it works out fairly well. And again, while you're in Valkyrie, your Guardian Angel distance is very, very large, so you could just leave at any time and usually get out safely if you think it's not going well.
And not only Widowmakers, like this happens to like a lot of other heroes, right? You can also challenge Ferris in the sky, for example, if
Absolutely.
you have like a pharmacy battle going
Just
on,
finishing
like
off stuff.
a lot the times that Valkyrie actually gets rid of the Pharah in the Overwatch League, it happens quite often.
Yeah, definitely. It reminds me of two quick tips. One of them's kind of related to the Battle Mercy. One of them's related to the. I would say for the Valkyrie, this is a bit of a pro tip for anyone who's trying to rank up. Is I would say if you've already won the team fight, no one else is going to die. Maybe they're still even fighting someone, but they're 60% health. The other guy has 10% health. Like how it's going to end. What you should do is you should actually, even though you're still in Valkyrie and could heal up your entire team, don't heal anyone. Wait, and as soon as your Valkyrie ends, then you heal them up, and now you've got an additional 35% ult charge towards your next ult, and that's huge. A lot of people don't think about that. Yep.
It's like the most important thing. You can get like 20% to 30% if you do it the right way. Yeah.
It can be a huge advantage if you start getting in the habit of doing that. I mean, don't let people die.
No, but that's a big part of it,
aside from
right?
that, it's like don't be afraid to have them take a little bit of extra damage. And then the other thing I was going to say with Battle Mercy in regards to Pharah is that oftentimes when the Pharah is barraging, it's usually not at you because they know that Mercy can Guardian Angel, and so she's probably not going to get killed by it. So that means she's not looking at you, and she's standing still. You can actually kill her really quickly, really often if you just pull out your pistol and shoot her. So I definitely recommend anytime you see a Pharah barraging, it's usually more valuable to actually shoot the Pharah than heal your teammate. So definitely consider giving that a try.
Okay, let's circle back to talk about the regeneration again, but this time outside of Valkyrie.
Okay. I mean, the regeneration, I don't know.
It's a minor thing.
Yeah,
it's a minor thing.
It's very useful. It's very good. In general, though, it's kind of like an afterthought. It's like, okay, well, just stay out of the way and your health will come back. I don't know too much what you want me to say about it.
Sure.
I mean,
I was thinking more
know
of
that
like,
it's there.
So it's like,
know that it's there.
I
And
can't tell you how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I feel like a lot of players just don't know it's there.
Yeah, I mean, it's very powerful. If you can actually, like, sometimes I'll be fighting someone and I'll leave behind the line of sight and they'll have to chase me. And by the time they come back to me, I'm back to full health and I can actually win the 1v1, or otherwise I wouldn't be able to. So it's definitely very useful. Obviously, in Valkyrie, you have it going throughout Valkyrie, so that's extra useful. But it goes very quickly. Like, you get a lot of health very quickly, and then it starts very quickly. So if you can even break line of sight for just a second or two, you'll get a lot of benefit out of it. And so that's, again, why I'm always telling people, keep max beam distance, break line of sight as much as possible, and you'll find yourself always at 100% health.
I will say one thing about the regeneration, because Mercy has that passive regeneration. It is the one thing that allows Mercy to sometimes be a single healer in a team composition.
Mm-hmm.
She's very self-sustainable compared to other heroes like Ana or Brigitte, for example, where
Absolutely.
their team heals are a little limited, and the heals that they can do to themselves are very limited. So they're usually relying on a second healer to kind of keep their backs. But Mercy has this Mercy has this innate ability to just be able to be self-sufficient, right? Like, she doesn't need anyone else.
Right, yeah.
As long as you're staying line of sight, you're good. So it does allow for certain team compositions to be run with just Mercy.
Yeah, if you ever have a solo healer, Mercy's definitely the choice to go with because of that. I mean, the passive health regeneration means that she doesn't even have to get the health back. She's very, very reliably able to take care of herself. And then with Guardian Angel, she can also get herself out of a lot of situations, whereas, the enemy team could just dive her on and she just melts instantly or something. Or, if Ana has to use her nade to heal herself. And,
Yeah. You want to talk? Andres was mentioning a little bit more about the Resurrect. I wanted to touch on this a little bit. I know we kind of have basically touched on it with every aspect of the kit so far, but maybe just a little bit more in depth with it on its own, because this is the one thing I know every Mercy streamer is like, how do I use res? Is kind of
Yeah.
like the one question you get the most in your stream. But before I let you go there, I'm gonna say what the ability does so that you can kind of understand this much. You have a 5 meter range. Basically, you need to be standing on the target you're gonna resurrect when you trigger the spell. Or spell. I've been playing too much D&D. When you trigger the ability, it is a 1.75 cast time, so almost a full 2 seconds before this thing goes off. And then it has a 30-second cooldown on it that will trigger if you get stunned and don't get the res, or even if you die. You will still have the cooldown until the death timer resets, and then it'll reset the ability. But the ally that you resurrect will have 100% HP and a slight invulnerability state for a brief moment before they're back in the fight. Okay. That being said, how do we use this properly, and how do we know when it's a good time?
Yeah, I would say in general, the number one rule is, again, don't go for the risky reses so much, especially at the lower ranks. I mean, if you're in the top few percentage of the world for the hero, it's like, okay, you might know better than the rule of thumb, but in general, you don't want to go for the risky reses. You don't want to res when there's fighting going on around you. So I've seen a lot of people, they start the res and it's like, as we said earlier, everything else disappears for the enemy team. They see someone who's standing still, their main healer, who is about to have someone else added to the game. So it's like, it's the most
it's
high
like
priority
a bullet
target ever.
magnet right there.
Yeah, so it's like, it's usually, if you think it's safe or you're like it might be safe, it's probably not.
And you're
It's,
basically stationary while doing
yeah,
this. You have like
you're very
25% of your
vulnerable.
move speed.
You're very, very
One
vulnerable.
thing,
So
one thing that is worth mentioning is this has been one of the most reworked abilities, and it's because it's that ability that feels really bad when you're going up against it, right? Because you feel
mhm.
like your work has been undone. But thankfully, throughout all of the reworks, I feel like that right now it's at the most stable spot that it's ever been. Like you
Yeah.
said, don't go for the risky reses, and that is a very wise advice nowadays because resurrect is not intended to be done in the middle of the fight. For example,
Mhm.
all of the
Right.
restrictions that have been put of this ability from the latest patches. Um, Basically are intended to be used when you're safe or when you have the companionship of your team, right? Like the help of your
Yep.
team. You have a Reinhardt shielding for you. You have maybe a Zarya that can shield you, or
Mm.
some DPS that can cover fire, so
Yeah.
they can't just freely fire at you. It's an incredible ability to fix certain things, like the enemy Widowmaker gets a pick on the back line,
Mhm.
and you're like, oh shoot, we lost, or Zenyatta or something like that. You can kind of like bring him back and still be okay and stabilize the fight like that. In the middle of the battle, if kind of like things wane down a little bit and you can resurrect one of your tanks that has an ultimate or something, you can
Yeah.
keep the point going. But yeah, it's an ability that nowadays requires a lot of decision making and some expertise in the on the mercy player, right? To gauge the
Yeah.
situation, gauge the timing, know if you're gonna be able to pull it off. Because like you said, losing your mercy on top of whoever already
Mhm.
died, it's probably one of the most detrimental like fight losing moments
Yeah.
ever to happen. So as a mercy player, you have to value your life over almost anyone else
Absolutely.
unless you know
Absolutely.
like the point is lost and it's like a last resort kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, you can speak a little bit more to
Um,
this.
yeah, I'd say if you're going for the risky reses, like you were saying, how your teammates can help you, I would definitely ask for that. If you have a mic, definitely use it.
Yeah, be
Um,
vocal.
yeah, just be like, hey, Diva, can you matrix me? Zarya, can you bubble me? Winston, can you bubble me? Ryan, can you shield me? All these different things, it's like they can really, really help you, and those abilities can be the difference between staying alive and getting the res and winning the game or not. So always, always, always ask for your teammates' help if you're going for anything that's even remotely risky. Um, and then I would usually just call out that you're resing just across the board in general. So they know that your cooldown has been used. They know that someone else is back in the game. They know that you're going to be not able to heal them or damage boost them for a few seconds. Things like that can be very important information. Um, and then moving on to more of just a tip for res in general is I would say because Mercy can't really move much, she's very, very slowed while she res. There's some little tips and tricks for staying alive and mobile and hard to hit while doing that. And the biggest one is you can actually res while falling off a cliff or some kind of verticality. So let's say someone dies on the ledge, you hit res and then you jump off the cliff and you're gliding down the cliff as you res them. The res completes and then you fly back up to them, and now you are a lot harder to hit, or at least get a headshot on you during that, or maybe you're behind line of sight completely while you res, and so that can be very, very useful. And I would say if you can res someone while falling, you should usually do it.
I've even seen some top mercies when they're resting just frantically start to move from side to side, so they're just kind of like spinning
absolutely.
to at least add some sort of distraction, right? To make themselves a little harder to be hit.
Yeah,
I've even seen
definitely.
players work with their tanks on this, like their Orissas and their Reinhardts and their Zaryas, to make sure they get the bubble, they get the barrier, they can res behind something safe. Even if it's kind of like, it's not really a fight skirmish, it's more of like a poke war. You can kind of get back into it before the fight like gets going haywire. Otherwise, I think your rule of thumb's still correct. You don't want to go for the risky res unless it's like still in the poke war. Because if they engage and you take that res, then that's game over, or at least fight over in some
And
cases.
then in general, sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just gonna say that Miss Boogie over here in the chat saying that everyone should be aware on how Mercy plays so that they can help her out during these moments, and it's true. Resting now has become kind of like a team activity, right? Don't just expect your Mercy to just be like, hey, rest whatever we need to rest, do it on your own, no problem. If your Mercy needs to rest or your team needs a rest, it's a team effort, right? Make sure that she can do it safely. If you can do something to help her get off that rest without more risk, do so. Like even Genji, like stand in front of her and deflect, dude. Like it works.
And then also going off by the comments in chat, there's someone who says, "Oh, the tanks, they know to shield you." Yes, if they took a written test that said, "Is it a good idea to Diva Matrix of Resing Mercy?" It's like, yeah, I'm sure they would check yes, but still communicate it, because I see all the time someone goes for a res and they're like, "Why didn't you shield me or bubble me or something?" Like, I didn't even know you were going for it. Like,
right.
They could be focused on fighting someone else. They could be, their cooldowns might be down, so they might say, "Wait a second before you do it."
Give him some reaction time, at least a few seconds.
You should always give them a couple seconds beforehand, and definitely just tell them that you're going to be doing it, because a lot of the times, they have no idea. They're trying to do their own thing. Or they just can't have the ability yet.
Even if you're not a vocal Mercy, if you're gonna communicate one thing, if you're communicating your reses, you'll probably be okay.
Yeah, definitely.
There's something I wanted to run by you, which we talked about when we had Fu on for our Moira episode, which is the aspect of what's called key healing. Understanding who the target is that you need to be keeping up at any given time, not by virtue of how a fight is going, but rather by virtue of who is on the highest rung of the priority list.
Yeah.
You want to talk to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So healing priority can be a tricky subject. There's a lot of random factors thrown in where you go like, well, yeah, normally you would be damage boosting or like healing your main DPS because, this reason, but it's like, well, actually the tank on your team is by far the best player in the lobby and he has gold damage right now. Like, that's the guy you want to be keeping up. Stuff like that could be it. But in general, you want to heal the person that is closest to death, and that doesn't have to mean exactly how much health they have left or something, because there's percentages of life, and there's situations where you go,
dangerous positions.
You could say
risk of his expected death.
Exactly. Like you could say that, yeah, the Rhine has lower health than the Genji or something, but it's like the Rhine has a shield and he's safe in a corner, no one's attacking him. Like, yeah, like whereas Genji, he's like actively fighting a McCree or something, and it's like he needs the healing right now, even though he has 50% health compared to Rhine's 20%.
Right.
So heal the person closest to death in terms of their danger of dying through various things, and that's the biggest thing. And then after that, you say, well, everyone's the exact percentage and the exact closest to death. which is very rare. I don't believe you, but I would say keep your other support alive because they will keep you alive, and thus in turn you'll keep the rest of the team alive.
And
So,
they're the only ones that can.
yeah, exactly. So I would say keep your other support alive. That would be number one. And then I would try slightly more so to keep your tanks alive because if you can keep them up, they can maybe buy time for the rest of your team to actually come back to the fight if someone's
Right.
died. Or just keep the rest of your team alive by shielding them. If there's no shield, then everyone's scatters and dies. So
Mhm.
And like
usually
we talked
that's
about,
my
usually the DPS have some sort of movement abilities
Mhm.
or something that allows them to get to health packs a little easier than
Yeah.
your Reinhardt or your Zarya.
yeah.
Yeah.
Genji has his deflect and
Mhm.
all sorts of stuff.
Okay, I think there's only one more thing here, which we kind of touch on again, which is synergies, matchups, and hero counters. What do you like to play with? What is stuff that really highlights the kit? But this is a question that really doesn't always apply to all of the heroes. And when we say that is because you have your heroes that are like Reinhardt, or you have your
Mhm.
heroes like Mercy, which are like the less meta
bread and butter-
dependent type of
bread and butter
heroes.
of the
They're
game.
more of the Marios, as you will, of the Super Smash Brothers cast. They do a little bit of everything, and they do pretty much everything fairly well.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure where we want to go with this, but maybe that is what we just want to say. Mercy is kind of your bread and butter. And Vale, anything else here?
Well, I mean, yeah, you can basically use her in any game fairly well. There are some heroes that work better with her than others, though. So, for
Sure.
example, if you have a Pharah, obviously Mercy's very good with her. You can stick with her, which keeps you out of harm's way often, and you're one of the easiest people that can keep her alive because Ana has to try to hit those difficult shots sometimes, and Lucio's he's on the ground, he can't heal her, stuff like that. But in general, you work best with people that you can damage boost well. So range DPS, usually pretty good. If you're running 4 tanks, then Mercy's probably not the best pick. There's situations like that. And then as for counters to Mercy, again, she's pretty good just across the board. But I would say that if there's a good Winston, it can really be hard for her. A good Sombra can be very difficult for her. Flank heroes in general, like Genji, Tracer, etc., can all give her a really hard time unless her teammates are looking out for her or she's exceptionally good at her mobility and staying alive herself.
Leaving. Yeah. I think that's gonna do it for the guide. Honestly, we covered so much ground so quickly, and we had such a great cast of questions. As we were finishing up here, I was just reading through all of our podcast questions in the podcast questions area of our Discord, which will allow people to submit anything. Primarily speaking, I feel like we've addressed all of these things without really needing to apply specific things.
I guess the
for
one thing
questions.
that I just wanted to bring up before we close out the discussion that we didn't touch too much is when do you give up on your teammates? Because as Mercy, you have that nurturing, caring personality. You always want to keep everyone alive. You have the ability to bring him back from death. So I feel like you get into this mindset where you feel like you need to keep everyone alive, but sometimes in life you gotta learn how to let go.
Yeah.
In Overwatch is much like the same.
I would say you mentioned this earlier that Mercy's life is basically the most important on the teams, and you should kind of keep that in mind across the board. So if you have a Genji who's really, or like a Genji, some kind of person who's really far into the enemy team, and you're like, dude, you're probably gonna die. Like he needs healing, but I just sorry, you're
If I
dead to
go
me now.
there,
Like
I might die
yeah, like I'm
myself.
probably gonna
You're
die
dead to me.
if I go after you, I might be able to keep you alive. We might get out, but like in general, I would just leave him to die because if you go and you risk dying, then your team's in a way worse spot. It's like you guys can probably hold 5v6, but you definitely can't hold 4v6 without your main healer.
Yeah.
So
The chat-
especially I see that a lot when you're playing 2CP and you're trying to hold, that point, and someone pushes out after the point that you're defending, and you're like, I don't know about that, man. We probably shouldn't go
Right.
past the choke point. I would just leave them. Like, if they can get back, they probably will be able to get back with or without your heals, and if they can't, then it's like, I would just leave them in that situation. It's unfortunate,
Right.
but
And I feel
hopefully you
like
have a Zen that can help.
this is a sign of experience on Mercies. When they
Mhm.
decide, you know what, you're not worth it right now. I'll just wait for you to respawn. I'm not gonna try to rescue or heal you because
You're
that's
not
gonna put
with
in
me, you're
jeopardy
against me, damn
me.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a tough decision to make. Sometimes it's not as clear as like, because sometimes you could save him and you could come out alive, depending on how things go. If maybe that person misses that one shot, you'll be okay. But it's a
Yeah.
risk, right? And you have to be weighing this risk the whole time when you're playing her. And I feel like it's as much part of her kid and decision making as anything else. Because
Sure.
yeah, you're very valuable for your team.
And so one last thing I'll throw in there, which is it's hardly related, but I'll try my best to relate it. Is never give up on your team in terms of like as a whole and team morale.
Right. Try to say that like I give up on my team all the time.
I would say
Asterisk.
get those endorsements now, but
yeah. You'll get a level 0 endorsement if you
yeah,
give up on your team.
but
then.
I will say in general what I more so wanted to say with that comment is if you can voice communicate with any hero, Mercy's the most important too. And the reason why that is Mercy, she's in a very unique spot compared to most heroes in that her job is mostly just to be watching over the team, watching the battlefield, and staying alive. She doesn't have to be chasing down people, killing them all the time. And what that means is she sees more of what's happening in the game than basically any other hero. And that means that you're the best person to shot call and call outs being any kind of factual information that's just like, hey, this person used their ult or a cooldown ability, or this person died, and shot calling being like, hey, let's push in and attack them because of that, or some kind of directions.
Yeah,
I would
engagement
say
versus disengagement is something you can do really
I would
well.
say a difference between a lot of low level mercies and high level mercies is the high level mercies know how to communicate to their team, and that can definitely win you a ton of games. Just saying, hey guys, let's back up. We're going to lose this fight, but we can regroup and contest the point again if we back up now. Or saying that, hey, we're up 2 kills. Let's push in, guys. Your communication can help the team more than almost anyone else in the game. So if you're playing Mercy, definitely, it's good to communicate.
Absolutely. Like the chat is saying, calling out flanks is super
Mhm.
important. As a Mercy, that's kind of like one of your biggest jobs as far as comms goes, because you're first respondent to a flank, right? Like if there's a flank, it's aimed at you.
Yeah.
So if you call it out, at least your tanks know that you're getting attacked. At least your DPS might know that maybe they should focus their attention in the back rather than the front. And you'd be amazed. Just letting your team know that that is happening
Mhm.
can save your life a lot of the time.
Yep.
Sometimes
I-
your team won't listen, but at
Mhm.
least you tried. At least you'd let them know.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Mercy players, because they see this information, they see the flankers, they see all these things happening, they get really upset when no one does anything about it. They're like,
Right.
oh, you guys let a Genji
Don't
kill me.
don't assume
Yeah,
that you're
don't
seeing
assume your team
like
knows
everyone else.
anything that you know. You
Right.
should always share any information that you are, that you pick up, because a lot of the times, the Soldier 76, all he's thinking about is like, there's a person over there, I'm trying to shoot, we're shooting each other, and like they're just tunnel visioned in that fight, or the tank's going, I have to keep up this person, I'm matrixing our Zenyatta or something. And so they don't see the rest of the fight unfolding that much. So definitely don't assume anything, communicate as much as possible.
That's a good
I would
tip.
even go one step further. If you're getting upset at your team for not peeling for you or just dying over and over to flankers, communicate that that's happening and don't expect them to change anything. You need to adjust yourself, because the only thing you can control. You need to get out. You need to play safer and
I would
not
say,
worry so much.
I would say just one tip in general. This isn't Mercy specific, but I see a lot of people that are like, "Oh man, I'm stuck in Silver League and I can't get out. I think I deserve to be in Diamond or something, but everyone I play with is really bad." Learn to blame yourself, and the reason why you want to blame yourself is because then that's a problem you can fix. If you blame yourself and go, "Well, I could have had better mobility if I used my Guardian Angel better, I wouldn't have died to that Genji," it's like, that's something you can improve, and then next game you won't die, next game you'll win, and now you'll be climbing. So always try to look inwards for how you could have won the game, and that way you'll improve more.
Absolutely.
All right. On that note, guys, I think it's time to land this plane. We could talk here, Mercy. We could talk Overwatch for days, but we got to land the plane somewhere. And it's more fitting with a hero that can fly than anyone, because why walk when you can fly and you're playing Mercy? So don't walk, folks. Fly around, use your GAs, and let's land the plane. So if you guys want to learn how you can support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/OmnicLab, and you can support us financially, or you can leave us an iTunes review using the iTunes store at any area of the globe. This week, we have Uncle Bobby B. Baby from Australia sending in a 5-star iTunes review. Thank you so much for your iTunes review. And if you guys would like to do the same thing, you can do that. We'll read your name on the show. And on non-going deep or timeless hero guide type episodes, we sometimes will even read out the entire review. Additionally, if you guys will support us on Patreon, we have certain tier lists for roles in the Discord, for coaching perks, and even for sponsorship roles where you get your name read off every episode. This week, we have the Diamond sponsors coming in hot. We've got Aiden C., Ben K., Britmus, Krista Playa, Durandal, Ginger Sasquatch, Golden Soldier A, Great Root Bear, Jan Jinkle, Jeff D, Lissum, Never Clutch, Ray, Roger B, Ricky Tiki Shazir, Terry F, Top Score Solutions, Tragic Zach, and of course, Red Steak Sauce Podcast. You guys have been fantastic supporting the show, helping us get to BlizzCon, and in so much that I was actually able to hook Vale up with a application for a media pass this year. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Vale's subs, we'll get him in there. Hopefully, he's got connections now. We'll see if we can get him a media pass. But if you guys want to support us, that's the best way to do it. Give us basically a cup of coffee a month. You can support us per episode, per content piece that we produce. It helps us out a lot. We had to produce a lot of things. I know Andres is doing a lot of other stuff for Owl Recap, and in allowing both of us to go, it helps us split up our party, as it were, and helps us get other interviews. I actually purchased a brand new recorder, which is here. I have it. If on the live stream, if you can see it, it's a nice brand new mobile recording unit that we can get you guys some more interviews. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get media passes and an interview this year is what we're banking on. And additionally, you can support us on Twitch, on our twitch.tv/OmnicLab, as we are now affiliates. So you can gift a sub or sub to us on there. Furthermore, you want to support us by supporting our guests. Vale, where can people find you and how can they support you?
The best way to support me is just twitch.tv/Vale. I stream basically full time, can give you more tips, and I don't know, just love to hang out with people. I have a Twitter and YouTube that you can see within the panels on those stuff, but mostly just Twitch is the best place. But thank you again for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So that's twitch.tv/Vale. You can find him on Twitter at twitter.com/Vale_NAOW. And you can also find us YouTube channel at youtube.com/C/Vale_OW. Andres, where can people find you?
If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. And definitely check out Vale on his channel. If you want some high-octane Mercy plays, that's the place to find it.
And he is Twitch partner, so you can go over there and get some fancy Imp Mercy sub button icons for your Discord and Twitch needs. You can find me on Twitter with the tag NotRob. You can also find me talking every week about Hearthstone with my Hearthstone podcast called Velen's Chosen Podcast. This last week, we had a very deep episode talking about gaming addiction from some personal stories and some worldview chit-chat. It's a very interesting show. We got a lot of really positive feedback that was much appreciated, considering we took a lot of risks with that one. This week will be a little bit more lighter. So if you guys like Hearthstone and you want to learn a little bit more about some decks, we'll be doing that this week. If you want to find Omnic Lab, omniclab.com. That's where you can find literally everything. If you want to find any other links about where we are, just look up something Omnic Lab and whatever resource you're looking for, and you're likely to find it. If you want to join the Discord and join the conversation, or even join the game night that's later today, you can do that at discord.me/OmnicLab in your browser. If you type it into Discord, it will not work because we're not Discord partnered yet. So please do that if you want to jump in the community. Actually, some of Vale's subs already did that today. So thank you guys for doing that. And remember, Don't be a lab rat. Be a scientist. Grow some wings and fly away. We'll see you guys next week when we talk about Hammond.
Thanks to everyone in the chat, the Vale Army or the Vale crowd. I don't know how you guys call it.
There's no official name.
Okay. Very active crowd though. I appreciate everyone who came over. All the mercy spam is very appreciated.
And all of the may the patchy gods bless you. Here you go.
And thank you so much, Vale, man. You were awesome. Great talking about
That's
mercy with you.
fantastic to have you.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
I have nothing more to teach you. The rest you
Wow,
must learn
poppin'.
for yourself.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Walk
Very active
in
chat
harmony,
today.
my student.
Be good to each other, folks. This is one of the most positive chats we've had.
I love my community. They're really
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, you have an
Thank you
awesome
everyone
community.
for coming out.
We'll send more your way. Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning into the stream. Like and comment, subscribe on YouTube, crowd. We haven't forgotten you.